getting on. Sat by the fireside, pondering on. Picture book, pictures of your mama, taken by your papa a long time ago. Picture book of people with each other to prove they love each other a long time ago. Picture book, picture book.
Ready to roll? Some cloudy skies here. A little overcast on this 12:15 p.m. live shot of our surrounding weather here. Not much breeze coming in off the ocean, almost a glass-like infield lake, if you will, here at Gulfstream Park. Plenty of turf on the program, by the way, with that inner rail set a good ways off the inside rail as we welcome you to our clubhouse studios high above the finish line. Jason Blewett catching up with you live on this Thursday edition of Gulfstream Park today. And wherever you're watching, we appreciate it. Hope you're doing okay as we get back in action. Already week number 3 of this 2020 spring meet here at Gulfstream Park. And needless to say, although the sun it appeared behind the clouds with that live shot outside, weather down here is pretty good, maybe somewhat on the muggy side, but the point is we're fast and firm with partly sunny skies over the next few hours here, and for good reason. I mean, we've got a lot of money guaranteed in that jackpot Rainbow Six, and you'd hate to have a situation with the rain or something like that where maybe the turf races were in jeopardy. That doesn't apply today. What does apply, though, is 7 figures, and 7 figures indeed in that $1.5 million guaranteed Rainbow Pick Six. As we left off Sunday, and I'm commiserating, I guess, with whoever was alive. That was a good race to close things out, depending upon who you needed. A buddy of mine on Twitter actually hit the Rainbow Six here for almost 30,000 on Sunday afternoon, but somebody was alive for 1.3 million. We hope whoever you are, you come back today, you get involved in the sequence. Just 20 cents gets you in the door, and that'll start in race number 6 this afternoon. Now, I've got a pick 5 brewing on this fast and firm Thursday, already the 16th of April, and my single, and maybe not a surprise depending upon who you are and who you like, that I'm standing alone with trainer Wesley Ward in the second race, and that is very noteworthy because, well, race number 2 is our opening 2-year-old race of 2020 here in South Florida, and I would imagine the entire United States, given the state of affairs. So we're certainly happy and prideful about that in the second race. You never know when a future superstar might be lurking, even in a baby race on April 16th. And judging from Wesley Ward and his MO over the years, I'd imagine Lime is going to be pretty fast and pretty tough to beat at a very short price, just looking at some of the double will pays at this point. I went deep in the third. I had some questions there. You'll see a scouting report a bit later in the afternoon regarding that third race field. And I've got coverage in the surrounding legs for a $36 ticket. Now, I am 4, 5, 6 starting things out in this opening leg of the Thursday pick 5 in a race that is a little perplexing and confusing to me. I feel confident that either or some combination of the 4, 5, and 6. I think all 3 of those fillies are legit and they're very tough in this race. I do think it is a 2-lifetime 3-and-up filly mare claimer on the turf, by the way, with a field of 8 after 2 early defections. I do think it's a race where there's just not a lot of, say, ability room or difference in ability or overall talent. It's not a lot of difference between maybe some of the shorter priced horses and bigger priced horses. I took the number 4, Joss Sayin, and I find it funny she's posted outside of a horse named Cat's Out of the Bag, because I feel with trainer Carlos David, who's setting out my top pick, Cat's Out of the Bag. I mean, the fact that this horse was 6-5 off a trainer change to him last time out, and she ran a good race. She lost a tough one, but ran a solid race in defeat. Do keep in mind, Too Much War wired her that day. So I'm looking for a better, I guess, quite simply, setup in this race with the 3 Cats Out of the Bag, the 2 Rosa Star, and the 1 Aerodynamic. Hopefully the 3 of those, some combination, mix it up towards the front, and I can cut everybody down with Tyler and Carlos David. Then you've got the duo of Strella's War for Rodolphe Brisset and the 6 She Fled the Scene. Tough to make heads or tails, at least as far as I think splitting them on paper. Although, for my money, the 6 She Fled the Scene ran a far better race than Strella's War did when they last met back in the second race here on March 5th. Let's move on to the opening 2-year-old race of 2020, and Promise certainly is renewed in this second race with a post time of about 1:35 Eastern as we go the 4.5 furlongs with this 2-year-old filly, $65,000 maiden special weight. Now, a couple of key changes as far as conditions moving forward here at Gulfstream Park throughout the year. 2-year-olds must reach date of birth by race date. I like that. And no Lasix within 24 hours prior to a race. Now, Wesley Ward is very much in the mix, and thanks to the Gulfstream Park press office for talking to Wesley, and I thought they had some pretty prescient quotes, and maybe not such a big surprise, again, given the fact that I'd say Wesley, when it comes down to these mid-April through maybe mid-May 2-year-old races, I don't know if there's a trainer in the country that's more adept and better at just cranking those really precocious win-early horses up for big efforts right out of the box. And Wesley on the record saying, the horses I run here right off the bat are very, very quick and speedy. These are the ones I targeted for these early races. And he was more or less pertaining to Keeneland, which is obviously a moot point. So you might be looking at some quality with Lime because he says she is all that. Very fast and very smart. She's a big filly, but she's very quick and agile. And needless to say, I mean, when you've got blazing early speed combined with a little bit of quality, you could be very tough to run down in these mid-April to late April 2-year-old maiden races. And boy, I joked in my analysis, I don't know if I've ever seen another trainer with a horse by Iqbal. If I see that stallion, I know it's a Wesley Ward horse, and Tyler will be riding this afternoon. But Ralph Nix has one in here for Jacks or Better Farms, the One Awesome View, who I put second. Ralph is one of the best 2-year-old trainers, not only in Florida, but, I mean, he's top class, top shelf all the way. And then you've got the Arundel a tag team on the outside for trainer Juan Alvarado, and both those horses may be live, but again, just Wesley Ward with a horse that was rerouted off the Keeneland spring meet. You would think Lime's going to be tough to beat at a very short price in the second race. Let's move on to the third, and if you recall my early pick 5, I had singled Lime for Wesley in race 2. I'm 4 deep here, and this race was a race that admittedly gave me some fits. I think Safi's Colt by More Than Ready, the 7 More Than Usual, is a worthy starting point just because he's faced better in 2 races. He hasn't run great. He hasn't run terribly. He's just run okay, and he's down in class. Big question to me is, can he go this very niche-like 5/8 on the turf? You don't know because he's exiting a pair of 2-turn route races. The 4 Weekend Dreamer I gave the top nod to because this horse's turf debut was obviously a huge improvement off his 2 previous races, and just backtracking to Grand Ombre. I know it might be painful to somebody out there that needed that horse for 7 figures here late Sunday, but tough beat aside, that horse really ran well against Blazing Desire, who was the big Mike Maker drop down. So I'm taking the 4 Weekend Dreamer off just a very auspicious turf debut. I think the 5 Legendary Prince might move up on the grass, being by Cairo Prince. He's got quite a bit of turf names in the female lineage of his family, including Badge of Silver, and even the second dam was by Silverhawk. So a lot of turf there. And mentioned Safi's horse. And what about the 9, Violent Fight, who showed very little? My trip note was no speed, 2-path near inside trip for that Colts debut. He could improve this afternoon, basically going from maiden 50 to 25 as a Mark Cassie second-time starter. That's the third. We move back to the main track in the 4th race. We've got some 3-year-old, or 3 and up rather, fillies and mares in this 2 Lifetime 6250 claimer. That sees me more or less, with the exception of the one Incredible Miss, who looks pretty dangerous and in a good spot, assuming all is well off the layoff on the drop to 6250 for Cherie DeVoe, or second off the layoff. I mean, that Into Mischief filly looks well meant to me. Other than her, I am outside in this race, moving from the 7 Gray Manners, who's back on the dirt, and I'd argue at this point she is who she is, but probably a better dirt horse, as she is in for 62.50 for Efren Loza Jr. The 9 Take Charge again, who has her claiming price cut in half. And what do you do with a horse like the 10 Lux Diamond, whose last out figure, and we talk sometimes about those numbers, the figures from at 5.5 and 6.5, they sometimes seem a little high. Well, her last number at 6.5 furlongs. I mean, she runs a 66 buyer. She'll win this race from here to GPW. Is she that quality, though? I don't know for Joe Orsino. We'll find out. I've got her more defensively, I guess, used in the Super, you could call it, down in 4th. But I am anxious to see if she can run back to that giant figure from March the 6th. But I'm taking the 7 Gray Manners, getting Louis in for the lowest level. And at the end of the day, I think she's a better dirt horse getting back on the main track. Here's race number 5. Let's cash out this early pick 5. And don't make it easy for sure. You've got a maxed out field of 12 in the cash out leg here. 3-year-old fillies in this $50,000 to $40,000 maiden claimer. That off the bat, I thought the biggest sort of pre-race nugget was because just from sheer numbers, you've got 3 horses after scratches, about a third of the field, coming out of the same race here on March 15th, won by Silvanella. Now, she was 4 to 5 in this race and basically didn't have a straw in her path, and she'll win by a comfortable margin. Wicked Mercury's in the field. We've got the 5 Toast and Jam for John Kimmel, Wicked Mercury the 7, and then KO's horse, and you'll see the emblazoned blinkers there in the 3-path or so in the yellow cap. Kathleen O'Connell's number 6, Our Fantasy. More I watch this race, the more I just looked at the entire picture that we're checking out now at the 8th pole. My gut feeling was and is I just question the depth, the quality, and I guess just the promise of this 3-horse rematch as a whole as those horses go forward. And I think quite ultimately run in a much deeper field this afternoon. And I say that because this race has got a number of new shooters, which that last race we just looked at didn't have going for it. And among the new shooters, you've got that 1-2 punch for trainer Todd Pletcher. He's got the 4 Kahiko, the Firster by First Samurai, really nondescript success in the pedigree. The dam was unraced. This is the 4th foal, and the 3 prior siblings are all maidens. The other Pletcher horse probably will go favored in this race. Or if she's not favored, she's going to take a lot of money. The 11 Summer in the City, who I have in the 2nd spot. She's dropping down, and I think she'll like just running against an easier field in theory at her 2nd start. And she struck me as a horse who was very just one-paced, kind of a grinder in her 5-furlong debut, and I thought a mile longer race might suit her as well with that experience under her belt. And then we've also got the Marcassi Firster, who I picked in this race, the 6 Mirai, who's a daughter of Broken Vow. The dam herself went 1 for 6 on turf, which I like. And the second family, she's out of her second dam is Atelier, who was a 9-time winner and a really probably grade 2. Maybe I remember her running for Shug, and I was a fan of hers. It always seemed like at times she was in a spot where maybe she should have run a little better, but I still was a big fan of hers. And the point is, there's a lot of quality in the female family of the 6 Mariah. I'm going to take her in her first start for trainer Mark Cassie and jockey Edgar Zayas as we take a little time out. Chase $1.5 million after this quick break on Gulfstream today.
And they're off. Second in the 2-path. Round off first inside. Race. A quarter of a mile to go, and he's 6 yards out. Last of the 12 as they roll into the backstretch.
And that promo code Sport of Kings still active over at firstbet.com. Download the app, iTunes, and the Android store and take advantage. Really like the user interface with that and have been playing and betting a couple of bucks here and there on the First Bet app. And if you're a new customer, again, bang out that promo code Sport of Kings. How about Ron Nicoletti? I don't want anyone banging on Ronnie per se because I have faith in him, and I think he'll be pretty tough stepping inside the ropes tomorrow, getting in the ring for a little Beat the Expert Friday action, a 10-race Friday card on that April 17th program. You can sign up, play for free over at GulfstreamPark.com. And I am happy, although I want Ronnie to win Beat the Expert tomorrow very badly, I am happy, although he'll be joining us a bit later off site. This is a real Ronzoni-centric portion of the show because that Beat the Expert graphic, and we've also got Ronnie's Rainbow Six ticket in the mix, and 6480, no singles to be had. So he's too deep starting things out in the sixth race. He's with the six, who I like looking at roses, and he used the big speed horse, Conquer, who is a rocket ship. That horse was a real runoff last time out, but a big speedster against Luis Saez. 3 deep in the 7th through the 10th races, and then wrapping it up. I don't know who his long shot is. I forgot to check, but I'm wondering, could that long shot perhaps be brewing in the 11th race this afternoon? So he's using, 10-7 actually. So let's see. We have got race number 10. Oh, he likes my horse, Sarasota County. I'm with you, Ronnie. I think that horse is going to get a wicked pace to close down. I'm with Ronnie's long shot. I picked that horse, the 7, Sarasota County, and he's too deep, wrapping things up in the 11th race. That may, in fact, feature perhaps top 5 toughest horse currently stabled in South Florida, as far as my opinion is concerned, in French Quarter, who just hits very hard. Now, Ronnie, again, too deep to start things out. I think among the pair that he's got, I ultimately think the 6. I don't see the 6 looking at roses being a third choice, 9-2 shot in this race. I think this horse is going to be favored over the 5 Bourbon Currency. And to me, I think he's the biggest story going in because his race last time out, as we start the Rainbow Six, was a very good effort, just aesthetically speaking. Now, do keep in mind Noble Hope, who gets the best trip of all. And we've got Looking at Roses highlighted. You can look at him in that white cap towards the back of the pack. The 6 is Noble Hope. He was 7-5, and you'll watch top of the stretch. It's the other Roses horse, Smell of Roses, who takes the co-favorite Positive Phil out into the middle of the turf course. New Hope slips through. I really like the way, however, that Looking at Roses, despite not winning, the way he finished up in this race. I also think it's noteworthy, perhaps, that trainer Guadalupe Preciado picked up a win here Sunday in Zippy, who, after the race, I had noticed. I didn't really particularly care for that horse. Quite a few people on Twitter I was happy to see cashed on that race, and just the form reversal that Zippy had here Sunday. Maybe this is a barn. My inkling says maybe this is a barn that's going to be active here the next few weeks and could be a barn worth keeping tabs on. So I'm with the 6 Looking at Roses. I tried to split him in the 5, who's probably second choice here in Bourbon Currency in the exacta, with the number 2 horse, Prince Kozan, who's second off a claim for David Fox. I get why Bourbon Currency is going to take some play here. And his return race, don't get me wrong here, in early February, was a good effort behind the very speedy and wire-to-wire winning Our Boy Evans. Ultimately for me, this has never really been a 2-turn turf router. And that's my main concern, him staying the trip this afternoon. I think he's got a real foe in Looking at Roses. Let's move on to the 7th. We'll start the late pick 5. I hopefully have my second winning and perhaps successful late pick 5 ticket coming up a bit later this afternoon. And I've got an $18 play, covered my bases with French Quarter in the last race, and I'm going to go 3-7-10 in this opening leg. This is the 7th on the main track going a mile, and really a case can be made that the 3, 7, and 10 are pretty much the subplot, the main subplot to this opening leg, because they're, 3 stake-faced horses whose best form has eluded them. I'm not sure who maybe is the most reliable, per se, between the 3 January 1 for Ken McPeak, the 7 Genghis, who I think consistently he's run against the best horses here in South Florida. He's caught one loaded field after another. Might be a good claim for 25,000 too. And then the Pletcher drop down on the outside, the 10 Awesome Party. I picked Awesome Party knowing full well that he's going to have to likely improve a little bit off his 3 races to date, but there's the linchpin. He's only run 3 times, and I'm encouraged that Todd runs him here at a one-turn mile, which my gut feeling, or at least my thought was, would a mile be long enough for this horse? But I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. Again, the 7 Genghis is in off a bad race at over 70 to 1. But other than that, I mean, when he's been properly spotted per se, or he hasn't run against the likes of New York Traffic, a Money Moves, a Chance It, a Positively Awesome. He's run some fine races, and again, who knows what to do with the McPeak horse, the 3 January 1, who broke his maiden at Saratoga in one of those restricted maiden races last July. Boom, into the Iroquois at Churchill, and then faced Maxfield in the Breeders' Futurity. He's in for 25,000 off the layoff. Let's move on to race number 8. We've got a replay queued up, and I'm inside-outside in this race. My buddy Rashawn Creaky setting out the 1 Warrant Officer, who we'll talk about, and my other good buddy David Fox is setting out the 8 Drama in Dixie, and there was more or less drama around the quarter pole last time out. Oh, there's Conquer. We had mentioned him. I know I'm just rambling along here, but that's Ronnie's speed horse who he likes in the opening leg of the Rainbow Six. Meanwhile, Drama and Dixie, Whitecap, completely shut off to the inside of the eventual winner in this race, Castano. I don't think Drama and Dixie was going to win, but I think Misael, after getting shut off so abruptly, said, you know, I got no chance to be in the Super. Let me just take it easy with this guy, wrap up. And, the effort 2 back for Drummond Dixie was a good one, and that makes him just a major player here for 12,500. Meanwhile, Rashawn is sending out the number 1 Warrant Officer, and Rashawn, over a 5-year span, has done good work with off-the-claim moves. Now, he picked this horse up about 2.5 months ago, and this falls in line with this stat right here, just straight up, very broad and generic, first off the claim. He's 6 for 33, so winning essentially 1 out of every 5 that he saddled, and these are horses paying some okay prices. Warrant Officer dangerous in the 8th race this afternoon. 9th race for me is really about, as we step back onto the main track, it's a really difficult Florida-bred optional claimer. And the one thing I like about this race is, I mean, you've got contenders that really stretch the gamut in both sides of the spectrum. I mean, a 52-race veteran with 10 wins like the 5 Charlie the Greek, knocking heads with Cajun brother on the rail, who's only run the 1 time and upset that debut at almost 40 to 1. All that said, though, and I like the diversity of the field, I still think the 9 Just Kidding is the yardstick, the measuring stick to this race, where he may not win all the time, in fact, quite the contrary, but he usually always runs hard, and just his figures, his speed, his overall sharp consistency, I still think he's the real nucleus of this race going in, although his margin for error is obviously pretty slight. Let's move on to the 10th, our last trip this afternoon on the turf, and the Nicoletti long shot is in this race, and I'm pretty happy to find out that's Ronnie's long shot and my top pick. And for good measure, why don't we put the weight of the world on Sarasota County, not only picking him, Ronnie and myself, but showing his last race. He would have been knocking heads with Macho Blue, who scratched, and you could see the better trip Macho Blue had as an outside speed. I really like the way Sarasota County, who's in that red cap sitting 5th or so, off the far turn. I like the way this horse finished up. And I'm thinking, looking at this race, and he got a good number and all that, and loses a tough one here with that rail skimming ride beneath Hyro. I'm thinking maybe this horse is healthy now, sharp, and ready to make up on perhaps some lost time. I think there's another good effort coming with Sarasota County. I just see a ton of speed in this race. You've got the 2 Real Money, who I've got capping my Super now. Factorino's got speed. The 4 Quarky can mix it up. And there's a few other speeds in the race, too. Oh, Longblade, the number 10 on the outside. So I played it meltdown style here with Sarasota County over the number 9, Captain Ron. and would give Quarky a look. I think he's the best of the speeds, and I am at least comforted knowing he has run some okay races at 5 and 5.5 on the turf in the past, although I think 6 to 7 is probably what he's best at. At least he's run some okay races going shorter for trainer Mike Deeney. Let's wrap things up, and I'm not trying to reinvent the wheel in the Thursday nightcap. In fact, it's the opposite of that. I put a lot of stock in this 6250 claimer, the lowest level we run here at Gulfstream. I'm just putting a ton of stock into horses that have been running recently and that have held their form well with sharp consistency. French Quarter is about as tough as they make them, and I've always had a soft spot for this horse because he's been such a tiger on the dirt, yet he's by Shakespeare, and he's like the only horse I've seen by Shakespeare that can run on the dirt, and he's done it pretty well throughout his 64-race career, and he's looking for 2 straight for Saffie. Next to him, a real rival, obviously, in the 6, very amusing, who's got Jorge Delgado and is very sharp in his own right with jockey Edgar Zayas. So I'll be holding down the fort along with track announcer Pete Aiello. We'll catch up with Pete in a few moments. We'll have Vacation Ron from off-site and want to wish all of you the best of luck. We'll get those scratches and changes up now with Pete.